Hello again, football fans. Chris Dunn here with another RFL draft team preview. The Columbus Explorers have two picks in the first round. They pick 17th overall and they pick 27th overall. So, again, a team that is not that far removed from winning the Relo Bowl. Two first round picks. Let's go ahead and take a look, see what we got here for the Columbus Explorers. So, I'm going to go ahead and pull up their roster situation, kind of give you guys an idea of what the free agents are for them, and then kind of look at the depth chart, look at some of the prospects, and see what they might do with their draft capital here. Again, 9 total picks overall, 17th overall in the first round, 27th overall in the first round. And then they've also got 3 picks in the third round. So basically 6 picks. If you're looking at that rounds 1 through 3, those are typically the rounds where you'd like to get guys that could possibly contribute immediately. And so for them to have 6 picks in those first 3 rounds, again, 3 of them in the third round. So maybe not all those third round picks are going to be guys that are going to contribute right away. But certainly those 2 first round picks, you're really hoping to get guys that can step in. And for the Explorers, hopefully get them back to the promised land, right? Missed the playoffs last year, but again, not that far removed from the perfect season and winning the Relo Bowl. So, all right, let's take a look. So throughout the season, and certainly, in the off season, they're potentially going to have to address some guys. So, we've got Rashad Chamberlain, who was phenomenal for them last year, has been phenomenal for them. He is a lot of money that is potentially coming off the books at the end of the year. Pat McNeil, again, that's a guy that I don't imagine going anywhere. You want to keep that guy around. Bowers, fullback. I think you're getting rid of that money. I think you're pretty good just letting him go, take that money and use it elsewhere. I understand that he's an 86 overall. It's kind of tough to just let that go. Maybe there's a team out there that likes fullback and you can try to make a trade. You don't typically see fullbacks in the trade market. You don't typically see teams trying to acquire fullbacks. But again, when you've got a guy who's 86 overall and he's star dev, like, take a look at the top of my head. I don't remember how old he was. Yeah, he's 31 years old. So you're probably letting that guy go. He's probably going to regress a little bit. So that 86 overall is probably dropping. Bowers, free up that money. Go address some needs. If you do end up losing somebody like a Rashad Chamberlain, whatever guys you lose, take that money and go get some guys elsewhere. On the offensive line, you've got AJ Clifton. He's a potential free agent. Heath Fedorowicz, he's also another one. These guys are all over 80 overall. So certainly some positions that the Explorers could look if they're just looking at potential free agents and guys that they might want to replace. If they think that they're going to lose those guys, those are all possibilities right there. And then you got Marquise Ray, who's a 79 overall corner. So they got 2 corners that are potential free agents at the end of the year. So let's go take a quick peek now at the actual roster. So let's just go to the corners, right? Because there are 2 guys on there that are potential free agents at the end of the year. So let's look at those. Rashad Chamberlain, obviously your CB1, and Marquise Ray is your CB2. So right now, the Explorers are looking at a situation where their number 1 and number 2 corners are free agents at the end of the year. And are you going to re-up Rashad Chamberlain at 31 years old? Or are you going to let him walk? If you let him walk, you're getting nothing in return. But how much is he going to regress? At 95 overall right now, I would hope that if I'm the Explorers, I'm hoping that the re-sign value, the re-sign amount isn't that large, because what I would love to do if I'm the Explorers is be able to re-sign Rashad Chamberlain for like a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal max. But if I could sign Chamberlain for a 1-year deal and at a significant pay cut, or, maybe If it's just 1 year, you know what? Like maybe you give him whatever he's asking for because it is just 1 year. But you don't want to lose Marquise Ray and Rashad Chamberlain. And because Marquise Ray is 29 years old and a 79 overall, you might be more inclined to let him walk, because you certainly can replace a 79 overall that's 29 years old. It's harder to replace a 95 overall, regardless of how old they are. So if you're looking at the DB position, I think that this is certainly an area that the Explorers could go. At best, they're going to have Rashad Chamberlain for 1, maybe 2 more years. And the rest of the secondary is aging, certainly at the cornerback position. You got Ray, 29 years old. Mario Culver, 32 years old. Right. And then you've got some other guys that are kind of just guys, right? They're just, they're just taking up space. Like Adonis Vasher, he's not going to see every down time. Right. So the secondary here, I think, is an area with the luxury of 2 picks in the first round, with the 17th overall pick. I think there is a case to be made for the Explorers to go out and get a DB. Whether that's to replace Chamberlain, I hope not if I'm them. And maybe it's not even to replace Ray. Maybe the Explorers re-sign both Chamberlain and Ray. That still does not take them out of the market for a DB. Because again, at 31 years old and 29 years old, respectively, you're looking for a young, talented DB to come in and lead you into the future. And right now, they don't have that on the roster. So regardless of what the plans are with Chamberlain and Ray, I think that the Explorers could address the corner position here in this draft 100%. But even as early as the first round, I could see them going corner if they wanted to go that route, either at 17 or at 27. And if you're going corner, right, like let's just take a quick peek here and we can go to the corners. If you're picking at 17 or if you're picking at 27, guys like Xavier Savage, Jack Sky, probably not there. Brian Robinson, Kenzo Udo, Elijah Carter, Jojo Carter, Vinny Ball, Brandon Cherry. I think when you're looking at corners, I think there is 3, in my opinion, there's probably like 3 tiers towards the top, right? Like there's the Xavier Savage kind of Jack Sky tier. Xavier Savage is going to be a little bit older, a little bit more experience, a little bit more of a sure thing, if you will. But Jack Sky probably a little bit more upside. And so regardless, both of those guys are gone, right? Like I don't think at 17, either one of those guys are available. Then you get to Brian Robinson. And this is where it gets kind of interesting because I think, like I said, there's about 3 tiers at that top echelon. I think you've got the Xavier Savage, Jack Sky. Those are probably your tier 1 guys. But then I think your tier 2 guys, it kind of depends on who you like more. Because you could make a case for Brian Robinson. You could make a case for Kenzo Udo. The way that he played this year, you could make a case for Brandon Cherry. The way that he played last year, you could make a case for Vinny Ball, right? So, and that's not even, and I'm leaving out guys like Elijah Carter and Jojo Carter, who are going to be great locker room guys. They're users. They're active in the league. They are, respected in the league. And so there's a lot of guys there, I think, kind of in that tier 2. I guess you could probably call all those guys maybe in a tier 2 by themselves. Because again, if you told me that you had Vinny Ball as your 3rd best corner, I'd say, okay, all right. Who are your 4 and 5? But if you told me Kenzo Udo was your 3rd, Brian Robinson was your 3rd, right? Like you could probably make a case, again, depending on who your guy is, you could make a case for that guy being the 3rd corner in the draft. And so if you're the Explorers and you're picking at 17, and we've just established that the top 2 corners are gone, well, maybe the third corner is still there. If only 2 corners go in the top 16, well, then now you're looking at, you can be the first one in that second tier. Or even if another guy goes, let's say 3 corners, let's say 4 corners go in the top 15 picks. It's possible, but even if 4 corners go in the top 15 picks, is the difference between Vinny Ball, Brandon Cherry, and Brian Robinson, Kenzo Udo, is that difference all that great? I don't think that it is. I don't think it's that big of a gap between a guy like a Brian Robinson and a guy like a Vinny Ball or a Brandon Cherry. And so even if 4 corners have gone in the top 15 or 16, I still think that you could be okay, especially if the guy that you think is CB3, go get him. Go get him at 17. Right? And so again, that's something that they could do if they wanted to go corner. Let's go back and take a look at some of the other positions here. So we've got linebacker. Okay, DeMarco Lando. He's 32 years old. Yeah, he's an X factor, but he's 32 years old. He's not on a walk year. So he's going to be returning at the age of 33. So maybe you're less likely to draft a replacement because you do have Shaq Bolden, who's 22. You could develop Shaq Bolden. But if you wanted to sell me on the Explorers going linebacker because DeMarco Lando is 32 years old and you have a first round pick and you want to get a linebacker that is going to be that linebacker of the future, maybe you don't think Shaq Bolden is that linebacker of the future. Maybe you think Brian O'Connor is. Maybe you think Nick O'Quinn is. Again, I don't know that Brian O'Connor or Nick O'Quinn are even available at 17. I think there's a chance that both of those guys are gone, right? But maybe they're not, and maybe that's the direction that they would want to go. You take a look at the defensive line. You've got Dylan Cutler. You've got Tyquil Jones, Devin Andrews, who they just picked. Like Devin Andrews not going anywhere. I believe that was a first round pick for them 2 years ago, I believe. Devontae Moore. Like if you look at the defensive line, these guys are good and young, or they are at least young, right? And in the case of Devin Andrews, he's both. Really, in the case of Devontae Moore, he's both. And Dylan Cutler, Tyquil Jones, like the defensive line, I'm not worried about. If you're the Explorers and you want to go, you want to throw a dart in the third round at pick 27 and you want to take a guy on the defensive line because there's a guy on your board and he's still available and you thought he was going to be gone by then and you like him and you want to, you want to roll the dice on a dart throw in the third round and get a defensive lineman. Okay, fine. Again, I don't think you need it, but when you're talking, it's your 6th pick of the draft, right? Like, okay, go ahead, roll the dice. Let's look at the offensive line. Pat McNeil, again, talked about it. Free agent at the end of the year. They're going to re-sign him. He's probably priority A1, but he's probably going to cost a lot of money, right? So then you look at guys like AJ Clifton, 33 years old. Joe Griffin, 31 years old. Heath Federowicz, 31 years old. Again, in the case of Clifton and Federowicz, they're both free agents at the end of the year. So this is where we now start looking at offensive line. And at 17 overall, we talked about offensive line a little bit with some of the other positions. But at 17 overall, let's go ahead and take a peek. We're looking at Griffin, who is playing guard, 6'2", 315. Federowicz is playing tackle, 6'4", 310. Maybe they resign one or two, one or both of those guys. Maybe they don't resign either one. Regardless, I think even if they do resign him for a 1-year deal, you could still address that position in the draft. And so let's take a quick peek at the offensive line, right? Let's look at the guards first. All right. So Let's go up here, offensive guard. So at 17 overall, Casey Chestnut. Again, we talked about him a little bit with some other teams. I think he's gone well before 17. Caesar Davis. I actually also think that Caesar Davis is probably gone before 17. Those are your clear cut, in my opinion, top two guards in this draft class. And then if you wanted to go the tackle route, or let's look at center. If you wanted to go that route, a lot of times you can take a center and move him to guard. So if you wanted to potentially look at going guard, you could also look at the center and guard or your interior offensive line. And again, you can kind of interchange them. Rico Cardoza is a guy that you could look at. I don't know that there's going to be a center taken in the top 15. So certainly you could be looking at the best center on the board at 17. But let's look at the offensive tackles real quick, because here's where I think you could get a little interesting. I think offensive tackle is a position in this draft class that is a little bit. I would say it's top heavy, but I would say it's also deep, right? In the sense that you look at these names, and I could probably make a case for anyone in the top 9. I think for me, the fall off starts somewhere around 9. So I think there's legitimately, maybe you want to make a case that the fall off is somewhere around 4 or 5, depending on who those 4 or 5 are. If you think Greg Dunham is better than Cody Nelson, okay. Right? Like, I mean, you think that Chuck Bynum is better than Cody Nelson? Okay. Like, you can make that argument. Right. And so guys like Cody Nelson, Greg Dunham, Chuck Bynum, I even think Anthony Moore, like, you look at the year that Shady Houston had, like, that Texas offensive line didn't get nearly enough credit. And Anthony Moore is far and away the best offensive lineman on that team. And so, to my point about the offensive line position and the offensive tackles being a little bit deep, it's mind-blowing to me. Again, I'm just going off of Peacon's rankings. I would probably have Anthony Moore a little bit higher. But I don't know that I would, because again, I think Anthony Moore is phenomenal. You go back and watch the tape on Anthony Moore and Texas and what he was doing this year to dudes. It's hard to think that guy that you're watching on tape is the 6th best offensive tackle according to Peacon. However, you would have to replace some of these other guys in order to get them any higher. And if you go watch the tape on Cody Nelson or Greg Dunham, Chuck Bynum, Trip Zimmer, Brett Sloan, their tape is really good too. Right? And so if you wanted to go offensive line, you wanted to go offensive tackle, you could do that. You have 2 picks in the first round. Who's your guy? Which one do you like more? If you want to go O-line, there's an option for you. Right? And you could be looking at the first one off the board. I don't know if we're going to see an offensive tackle taken in the top 15. So you might be in a situation, if you're the Explorers, where you're taking whoever is the best offensive tackle or the highest rated on your board. And then lastly, real quick, just go and look at some of the other positions here. CJ Robinson, not going anywhere. Love him. Future Hall of Famer. Caleb Houston, love him. Not going anywhere. Latavius Austin, 82 years old, 26 overall, under contract. No reason to not like him there. Obviously, you don't love the 87 speed, but again, he's not your number 1 or even your number 2 option. And then certainly guys like Leon James, Christian Williams, like, these are good, serviceable receivers. So not really envisioning a scenario where the Explorers do anything at the receiver position. You've got Klon Bowers. He's 31 years old at 17 overall. Maybe, you look at Klon Bowers was fullback, not a tight end. I'm sorry. Joshua Jeffries, 23, not going to do anything there. They just picked him up in the draft. Michael Bronson, 79 overall, like a 79 overall backup tight end. You're good. I don't really know, what the move is there for them at tight end, unless they really just had a guy that they loved. But again, both of those guys Jeffries and Bronson under contract. Don't really need to make a move there. The running back position, though, I mean, Bradley Ottagwe is 30 years old. And then you've got Tommy Bigby, who's 25 years old. I don't think that this is a scenario where we would see the Explorers draft, a Bo Sanders, a Bo. Like, I don't know if Bo Sanders is that guy. He certainly would be a development piece, so if you wanted to, you could make the case for taking Bo Sanders, but he's not going to start. Bradley Ottagwe is going to be the guy. Maybe you want to sprinkle in some carries for Bo Sanders as a rookie, but then you're taking away from the talent of Tommy Bigby, which is already on the roster. So, typically we don't see running backs going in the first round all that often. And I don't really see a scenario here where it would work. Again, you have 2 first-round picks, so you have a little bit of a luxury, but I certainly don't see the luxury being at the halfback position. And obviously, they're not doing anything anywhere in the quarterback position here. So for me, it really comes down to, I think you could do some things at corner if you wanted to look. And I think you could do some things on the offensive line if you wanted to look there. The defensive line, I like. The linebackers, I mean, if you wanted to make a move there, you could. Again, the luxury of 6 picks in the first 3 rounds. You don't have to go first round on some of these guys. So you could use a second-round pick on a linebacker and still get a really good guy and not feel obligated to start him right away. You could use a second-round pick on a corner because you're worried about Rashad Chamberlain's regression or whether or not you're going to be able to afford re-signing him. Right. So I think the Explorers are in a position where there's not a lot of position groups where you feel they absolutely have to address. And even if you convince yourself that there is a position group that they absolutely have to address, they have enough draft capital to make it work. They've got 2 picks in the first round, 1 in the second, 3 in the third. That's plenty of draft capital, right? You'd love to see the Explorers maybe package those third-round picks to move up, maybe up back into the second round, right? So certainly a lot that the Explorers could do. Again, we're talking about a team that is just a couple years removed from an undefeated season, winning the Relo Bowl, but then last year not making the playoffs at all, right? So they're going to be looking to get the team in a position to get back to the postseason and even beyond just making the postseason, making a run back at another Relo Bowl. So Columbus Explorers, 9 total picks in the draft. First pick is the 17th overall pick in the first round. That's going to wrap it up for the Columbus Explorers team preview. Again, round 1 of the RFL draft kicks off on Friday night. The Explorers will pick twice on Friday night. So stay tuned to see what they do there. Continuing to roll through these RFL draft team previews. And so be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. If you have any questions, comments, issues with any of the analysis or insight, let me know in the comments. If there's a team that you really want to see, let me know. You can send me a DM in Discord. And if I need to jump around for some certain teams, I can do that as well. So Columbus Explorers, your draft preview is in the books. RFL community. Until next time, take care, everybody.